tardes, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to all for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, and the love and support everyone shares with me. From the heart, thank you. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype the message in the hopes it could have a bigger reach and it could reach those that it might benefit in a positive way. Thank you. Well, to get into it, this one's gonna be a little bit short. I just been putting it off since I had the conversation with a certain homie, right? But nevertheless, I want to speak basically when you could say the new era of Billy started hitting the Bay Area, right? And in the desperation to pick control, there was a few mistakes, right? But this is one of the most noticeable one, which was, it made an individual that he wasn't just wet behind the ears, right? He just didn't have it, and I say this with the utmost respetos, even though he don't deserve it, right? Nevertheless, he jumped the gun as Billy's just to take control of Frisco. You know, there's a lot of big cities in the Bay Area, but well, Frisco is the city, right, in the Bay Area. So it was an opportunity that Billy jumped on without really think it through, but allow me to make sense. And it's also why I always say, be trucha, hope you have awareness so that when cats get out of prison, you're able to see through these individuals, right? It's part of maintaining a top or a head. But anyways, today I want to talk about Junior from Frisco, from 19 and Mission. First I'll take you back to YA. It was the first time I met Junior. He was so around my age, take a year or give, right? But anyways, homeboy, he was a knucklehead. There's a lot of individuals that were born right in the cities up north, and you could say we had a different wiggle, right? But in reality, is just some people are knuckleheads, and some people they think things better. And Junior, as myself, we were just knuckleheads. To be sincere. Anyways, he was always about it. Within time, I used to go out a lot to Frisco, right, with the homies, especially 19, because well, in truth, they always had a lot of girls, right, a whole bunch of hyenas, and they had it sort of to where you could party 24/7, right? Nevertheless, going into 19, it was something always happened, right? To the point where you knew who was a fool, who was gonna stick it with you, como caiga, right? However the outcome may be, and those that will just talk. So in that sense, what I'm trying to say, I don't have nothing negative to say about Junior. The next time I seen him from the streets was when we were in Quilmas. He actually was there just for a violation, right? And I was beginning my term, which at that moment didn't have an end date, right? And we went on a little mission per se, right? And it was just to some J Cat from 19, right? Pirate. He was it's a little 5150, and that tension was called out to him for many reasons, but mainly because he was always trying to cause conflict between paisas and the homies, right? So it just became an issue, an issue that, was either get right or get on, right? So we ended up moving on him. And, at the end of the day, Quilmas has a lot of blind spots, point blank, right? And, he would end up doing his violation there in Quilmas, and I would end up splitting, right? And the next time I heard of him was in Corcoran Shoe. Like I said before, at the moment, there was homies from up north, right? But you knew who was who, because you could literally count them with one hand that were in the mix good. Nevertheless, Junior's name was always up there. You see on the streets, he was also one of them. He was a hustler, right? He was just, but not like he had them angles. He was just a hustler. He knew the angle to go get, let's just say, right, go get a piece, and he knew how to chop it up to make his feria, and you know that type of hustler, right? Nevertheless, the shoe, or at least the shoes, right, at this time were full of promises that in reality a lot of cats didn't mean to keep, right? A lot of fools had that mentality that while I'm here, put myself on this position, I boogie, take care of business, and yeah, before I leave, to leave in good, hey, when I get out, I'll shoot you a package or I'll write you, which it's rare, you know. It's even more rare when you do it with the Billy, right? As Homer was doing it, and I speak about Daryl a lot. Like I said, me and Daryl, we went back to Corcoran. So, anyways, when Junior got out after Corcoran, to be sincere, he was always doing something, but it was mostly violations, right? That's what you will hear him. He's here for a couple years, or that type of thing. And I'll be honest, when I was busted, I didn't really care to hear nobody's time. Whatever time you were going to sit down and do, that's your business. I was a double lifer, so for me to even discuss time and dates, it was just dumb on my part, right? I never hated on nobody. It always felt good, even being a lifer, that a camarada that was really with the movement had that release date. Remember, this is my first time in prison, and I didn't have that, right? But nevertheless, I was never that individual. I understand, and I understood from every angle is that if you fall alone, period, point blank. And you tend to say you fall alone just because you don't get to go sideways from the gate, right? But you're inside hating on every homie that's going home. That's just part of not accepting what you have, and accept that you lost. In all means of the word, you lost, right? Especially in my case. Anyways, as I stated in other videos, I was real close with Gigi, with Diablito, with Junior, Green Eyes. Well, I was close with quite a few from 19, right? And once I hit Pelican Bay, it was a thing that his name started circling around. And it was like, okay. Again, I wasn't hating, I was just questioning the homie's knowledge, right? To do things the way things needed to be done. I understand there's a whole bunch of Billy's doing things from the sidelines, right, wrong. But in this particular case, there was quite a few Pilis involved. But I want to talk about Mosca, Ronnie, and Chato from Maravilla, Ronnie from San Diego. You know, I won't put it in. They were power hungry because they were just doing what the MS meant to do, right? Which is to try to break ground and try to beat the next man to the punch or their brothers, right? In virgin territory, new territory, excuse me. So, anyways, there's about six of them, but I'll speak about these three Pilis, right? They were the ones pushing the toughest for Junior to get made into a member. Keep in mind, up until this point, the only pegada that Junior was known for was the one we did in Quilmas. And it was because there was a time in Quilmas where it was going to go up, among 707 and Sanjo homies. And it was basically Sanjo got mad because two camaradas from 707, they ended up booking a homie from Sanjo. And Sanjo felt they didn't have him coming, or they should at least have the respect to take care of their own. Which you see that play out a lot, especially down south, right at this times. It's basically, for example, when I was in Ireland, every Ramfla took care of their own business. Of course, when it came to us up north, we didn't play that Ramfla city trip, right? It was just if homeboy was from Northern California, point blank, we would deal with the situation, right? And it was just to throw misunderstandings out the window, if you guys get it. And I know it's not what it's supposed to be, because at the end of the day, we're all one, but believe me, wars get started like this amongst our own. And anyways, it is why Junior was did tit that day, and I just went as a backing him up, right? Because even his own homeboys from the neighborhood, they wanted to get on. Quilmas ain't a pretty place to be sitting down waiting to leave to another spot, right? Then you pick up a ride up and you have to go through the whole process again. It's anyways, I rolled with him, and after that, it was again validations, right? He just happened to go to the shoes for riding, and he was from Frisco, a money making city, right? Especially if you got a park or an area where it's 24/7 little TJ, right? You're making feria clockwork. So I understood where Mosca and Ronnie being in Quilmas wanted that backing or that angle when it came to Frisco, right? And in reality, Chato did what Ronnie did. Those that don't know them personally, you know what I'm trying to say. Anyways, when I was already in the Bay, I got asked. The rumor had been going around for a minute, and I'd ask, because everything comes out. For all those that come on here and lie, speak out their neck, and say they were Superman with the Batman's underwear, in their own mind, everything comes out, bro. I mean, excuse me, gente. You know, whatever you were inside, it will eventually come out in one form or another. It takes a little bit, you know, but nevertheless, when they asked me, I said he was a good homie. I wasn't lying, right? I was keeping it sincere, and politics is a tricky thing, right? When a pili comes asking you and you're aware that pili's pushing for something, and you tend to go against it in any means, believe me, you're gonna have headaches. Especially like Mosca, Ronnie, Chato not so much, but them two cats, they would literally hold on to things. And they did ask me if I thought he was a more suitable one for Frisco. I said no. He's a good homie. He'll take care of business, but the most suitable one is Diablito. It just was my opinion, right? And Junior was too wild. But anyways, Diablito had a grip of time, and the urgency was to touch in Frisco as soon as possible, right? Anyways, he would eventually get made. He paroled, if I'm not mistaken, 2009. And right a couple months before he paroled is when he officially got made. I'm telling you, it was all just a trick, an upper hand they wanted, right? It wasn't really because individual is a good homie, but he didn't have them qualities, you know. At least as a ranfla, as a whole. And Ronnie knew this. Mosca knew this. He knew he was just gonna be a straight. You tell me I do and follow. That's what they wanted, you know. But anyways, here comes in where I always say, right? Be careful when you see shady stuff when an individual, even if he's from your neighborhood, gets out and starts doing things that he's not that. It ain't him. Or he starts speaking about stuff. This fool loves to get high, loves to be reckless, and all of a sudden he wanted discipline and organization. You know, so most of what he's doing is a lie. You can guarantee most of what's coming out is a lie. The one thing you were sure of, he was a tecato. He loved that negrita, right? But anyways, he would eventually get out and he started big chaos in Frisco. Not only in Frisco, it reached Vallejo. It actually just reached parts of San Jose, Richmond, Santa Cruz at the time. And it was basically, Hombre was doing things, but he was doing openly wrong. You know, I'll be honest with everyone, I don't really know what happened when it went wrong, but it really went from making our gente to tearing our gente, hurting them. It's just reckless arrest after arrest over dumb stuff that shouldn't be put on blast, right? And then he made it so bad in Frisco that I remember when he got shot up there to Pelican Bay, he landed on the pod and again we went back so we conversed and he made a big mess. He basically he hurt his neighborhood point blank. That's a thing that I advise everybody, you love your neighborhood, be aware of these individuals that they're gonna do is bring damage to your neighborhood. Cause you can't speak up. There's always way or means. If not, dress up like the enemigo, right? And take the poison out of your neighborhood. If you guys get it. But anyways, his Rico case was big. He got arrested in Momo, in Frisco, and he took down a whole bunch of people, a whole. Bunch of girls. I remember when Morena, Pitufa, and then they were tough. They were tough. They were different police, but they were going all the way down to where they needed to and opening doors that way, which is correct, right? And Junior basically put him in the spot where you're gonna do. how I say things, or you guys know. So they did. They supported him tough, and then next thing you know, they just got them double-digit numbers in the feds, right? And the one thing I tell you is his case was funny from the gate, right? Of course, I always just I went through it in the head, right? Like, hey, mostly everybody going to the feds. What you doing in the bay? Supposedly he had to do two different charges he was gonna serve, or I don't know. I didn't believe it. I'll be honest with you. The way he spoke, you come to terms to learn how to individuals tend to shield things to come out, right? Especially if you know them. But specifically, Mosca didn't allow time to go by. The minute he was there, he waited for him to get a celly. Another member from Hazard, and they clipped him point blank. They clipped him. You see, this is the time where specifically Mosca, right? Mosca was trying to take control of Sonoma County, Sanjo, Richmond, was out in Vallejo. He was out in Sanjo up into Sleepy, came into power and took over. And anyway, he ended up clipping him. That later it will come out, that basically since Junior wasn't known, he was being ordered to clip paisanos on the street. Basically set up a buy, like, you know, being recommended by so and so and end up clipping them, right? For Halle. That I knew Junior was good at. Nevertheless, even though they were orders, is what he flipped around and used against Junior. But it just meant because he didn't want his dirt to come out if Junior spoke on it. And it's just that simple, that circle, right? You tend to give your life for the causa blindly, right? It's what we sign up for, as everyone says, which is cool. But without noticing it, you get out and you cripple your own neighborhood, your homies, the ones that you're supposed to be loyal to. Because think about it. That word is thrown out so much now, dropout. But me personally, from the moment you stop being a sureño, a campolero, and you dishonor your neighborhood to become something higher than your neighborhood, which nobody should have that angle in your head. There's something bigger than my neighborhood, right? At the end of the day, we represent our neighborhood. To me, that's a dropout. And there's always ways. For example, if you don't have the knowledge, I've been in that situation where you have the right. They approach you, they say they're putting you up, whatever, right? And you can say, I'm just not ready. But again, that fame, right? That pedestal it's in it. Never there's that less, in this Rico case, there was 50 homies from 19. Just think about that. 19's big, but Northern California neighborhoods we ain't as deep as LA neighborhoods or down south neighborhoods. So he put a dent in his own neighborhood. And just to get busted with life, with shady grounds, and get wet by the own people that was using abusing him. But that's politics in prison. That's why, my best advice, it would always be do what I did late in life, after everything happened up in the ranch and I see all the betrayal and everything, and I got sick, I'll be honest, real sick, that I sat down and I started putting every aspect, moment of my life in a bubble and just start hitting it from every angle. And in reality, man, I'll just say I was blind. Don't allow those blinds to be put on you, I'm not on you for poison. I'm here for awareness and in the hopes I could bring an inline on things so you're able to foresee them. With this said, hope I made sense. I will be going live tonight. Thank you, everyone. Stay true to yourself and loyal to loved ones.
This is what we started. We always